if OOC can give the council a quick, high-level summary for those delegates who may need a little bit more information about what does it mean when we approve a carryover, and is that our intent, or are there other solutions that we could work on to support the programs? Thank you, colleagues and Chair.
So with that question, then Madam Chair, are you looking for answers from Madam Controller on the rundown? And then second, if you're looking for answers from, I guess, projected individual amendments, and then I think that, one of them is that there's been 2 recommendations for carryovers already. One of them was by Chairman Yazzie, and the other one was by potentially working on with Honorable Daniels too as well. And I think individually, they can explain at the time when there's a carryover to match that, or to explain why they need to carry over. But I can refer to the controller on the obstacles, or in their words, exceptions and recommendations on carryovers. If you're looking in that direction, Madam Chair, are specifically, are you looking to have that answered question by each and every individual that's going to bring the carryover amendment to the floor? That's my response.
Thank you, Chair Damon. I guess to respect the amending party, I would first ask the amending party if they may know a little bit more information, since they're supporting a carryover for a specific or particular program. And then if we don't have that information right now, I would like to defer if the Office of the Controller or OMB is on the line. What's important to me at this point is to know the timeline. So this is a projected carryover. So my first question would be then, when would we know the exact amount that's available for carryover? My understanding that's in November. And then when is the program eligible to use their carryover? And then my third question would be, has this program in the past requested a carryover? Thank you.
Okay, so Madam Chair, Madam Controller, I don't know if you're on the line.
This is Robert Willie from the Controller's Office, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead. I guess there's a question posed to you.
Good morning. Good morning, Speaker and members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee. As far as carryovers go, the year, fiscal year 2020 will close. The final closeout is in October, the 23rd. We do our hard close. The actual numbers get calculated in November, and we're shooting for a November 20th date to have all those numbers calculated and sent over to Office of Management and Budget. Once it's sent to Office of Management and Budget, they verify the numbers, and they're the ones that actually send out the carryover numbers to be budgeted to the programs. I'm not sure what other specific questions you'd like, but that's a very high level. I'll be happy to entertain any questions also. Thank you.
Anybody from Office of Management and Budget on the line? I want to respond to Madam Chair McCarty's question.
Mr. Speaker, this is Dominic Bial.
Good morning, Mr. Bial. Floor is yours.
Good morning, members of the committee. I just want to follow up with Mr. Robert Willie's comments. The my understanding and the way we've done it in years past is the fiscal year 20 books are closed, and it takes 4, 5, 6 weeks to do that by the controller, which is why we speak about November. And then the controller's office will send us a list of the carryovers or the unexpended balances by business units and program titles. Now, those that were authorized by Navajo Nation Council and then supported by action of the president, meaning he didn't line item veto it or anything, then we'll send out notice to the appropriate programs along with the carryover balance and request them to submit their budgets in those amounts. And typically that activity would take 2 or 3 weeks, which is why Delegate Crotty said typically it happens in January. Mr. Speaker, that's the process, and how OMB is involved in it. Thank you.
Speaker, a point of order.
Honorable Eugene, so a point of order.
If that's the case, why are we have the carryover on the floor discussion? We should discuss it later. So I don't think it's in order. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene, so the carryover discussion has always been a topic, not only in many of the committee meetings this year, and has been a huge topic on numerous different Navajo Nation Council budget sessions throughout the years. And this is nothing new to discuss carryover amounts. But again, carryover amounts that are operatable or suggested or discussed, again, goes back to what Madam Chair Amber Crotty has indicated, that these, and Mr. William, Mr. Bial indicated, that these carryover amount dollars are only a projection of what is available until they actually do the final closeout. As we know, many operation organizations, departments, programs are often trying to use as much as their funding as they can towards the end of the fiscal year. And in doing that, some of these closeouts of the actual dollar amounts don't happen until 45 days after the Navajo Nation is closed out. And that clearly is going into October and November and getting a final closeout at the end of November or early December as indicated. So the discussion for carryovers is something that's not new. This is something that has happened numerous times, Honorable Eugene. So with that, those questions regarding carryovers, we can discuss those at the time when the amendment does come forth. As of this time, there's no mention for an actual carryover amendment. But let me go ahead and continue on down the line through the discussion. You don't know who's, somebody say something?
Point of privilege, Otto Self.
Honorable Otto Still, point of privilege.
Good morning, everyone. Issue relating to carryover. Is there any policy in place prohibiting carryovers at this? Is there any policy in place currently that prohibits council delegates to entertain carryovers. That's all. Thank you. Good morning.
Let me go back to Office of Legislative Counsel. I do believe Ms. Lowell is online. Ms. Lowell, is there any policies, procedures prohibiting carryovers?
Speaker, thank you, Speaker. This is Kristen Lowell. There's the only policy, if you will, we have pertaining to carryovers is the appropriations lapse section of the Appropriations Act, and that's in 12 NNC 820L. And it says appropriations approved by the Navajo Nation Council will lapse at the end of the fiscal year unless otherwise designated by council. This same section does say that appropriations to the chapters will not lapse. So chapters are specifically excluded from that, but it also does account for the ability of the Navajo Nation Council to designate otherwise. And using carryovers in the budget legislation is, in fact, the Navajo Nation Council designating otherwise, Speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lowell. That, we move on down. Madam Chair Charles Newton, good morning. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Speaker and colleagues. Once again, good morning. Thank you, Speaker. So really quickly, I think one, it's a little hard. I'm going through the budget information right now. It's hard because we just received it this morning. And so I'm trying to get funding, I'm trying to find funding to for Dana's office because we do need more people in her office. So Dana, FYI, I'll be sending you an email. I'd like to take a few positions from different programs to see if we can fund the Office of Legislative Counsel. As we all know, we have come to that office with various requests for legislation, and we really need to be on top of this since that's our job is to get these legislation, I guess our legislations completed. So Dana, I'm going to be sending you an email here shortly because I would like to make a few amendments. The other thing that I am also interested in knowing is how do we go about increasing retirement funds? I know that we have a lot of Navajo Nation employees who have retired and they are not getting very, very much. I have met with a couple of officers who have retired, and their retirement is really, really low. I know that we did the 3%, or Budget and Finance did the 3% increase for employees. What I would like to know is with that 3% increase, was that increase done for exempt or non-exempt, or was it for both? And my understanding is that the non-exempt employees weren't allowed to work and they can't claim hazard pay or even overtime. But then some exempt staff, have gone, have put in their submissions for special duty pay, and they've really kind of, I hate to say this, but they've really milked the system. So I think we need to look at that. Some of our employees make around $10 an hour. And so I think it's just really, I would have liked to have seen, I guess, an increase for those individuals who are making, I guess, hourly wages that are not up to par with the outside, I guess, off the reservation. So that's my second question. As far as the unmet needs, I did at one point a question. I believe I sent an email to your statement and Shanada, Jamie Hanyo, because I guess I was a little bit confused about the unmet needs. And my question was, each one of the executive branches agreed to a certain amount, and I believe they said that they're going to carry on the same amount from last year. But we have all of these unmet needs that have been approved, and in my email I did use Law and Order Committee as an example. So if we approve the unmet needs for all of the programs that have submitted their unmet needs request, does that change the recommended amount that was agreed upon by the three branch chiefs on July 11th, 2020? And the example that I provided in that email is that Judicial has a $14,924,653 unmet needs. I'm sorry, they agreed to $14,924,653, but they also have unmet needs that are about $15 million. So if that is approved, and does that change the agreed amount that they originally agreed upon, how does that affect the budget, or does it affect the budget? Because I think we have to also look at the unmet needs and try to figure out, if it's going to affect the budget, then, which unmet needs are we going to approve? And I know Honorable Hanyo said that they split between the 5 committee members, and they kind of got to go in there and see what unmet needs, how much money for unmet needs they were going to be giving. So I'd like to see that. I didn't see that in the attachment, Shana. So if you could just point me to that, I'll be happy to take a look at that. And then my last question is, I've noticed that the K account, we always talk about K account, we talk about the funds, the external funds. At what point are we going to require our program to pay accounts first before tapping into general funds? I'm looking at the budget right now, and I see that there are some programs that get over, they get a lot of money in their external funds accounts. And we also received, I believe in December, every delegate received a spreadsheet of all of the funds that were being reverted back to the state and to the federal government. And in some cases, some programs were sending back, close to, 20 million. And that's a lot of money that we could actually be encouraging our programs to use. And as long as I've been a delegate, we've always, it seems when programs come before us, we talk briefly about K accounts, and then we kind of just drop the subject. So at what point is this council going to start enforcing, or the programs to start using their K account money first before they tap into general funds? Because I remember Honorable Crotty at one point said it's easy to use the general fund money, and that's usually the first thing that they use at first. And a lot of these programs don't actually go into their grant money. And so I think at one point we did have that conversation, but I honestly don't remember what was the outcome of that conversation. And so we're talking about money that we currently were okay now, but we have to look into next year and then the year after, because this COVID is going to affect us. It's going to affect our budget. So I just want to know, about the K account. At what point is the 24th Navajo Nation Council going to have an in-depth conversation about the K account and develop a plan to push programs to use your K account funds first before actually using general funds? So with that, Speaker, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going back on mute.
Thank you. We go back to the sponsor. Chairman Nino.
Again, Speaker Damon, the Shinanta, 24th Navajo Nation Council. Regarding the unmet needs, again, every year, unmet needs are growing, are increasing, and you have to look at each program and see, kind of analyze what are the unmet needs. Sometimes you'll see unmet needs as for more travel, more supplies. These programs, they just start pushing this into like their wish list. And so you have to really analyze and see each program and see what are the true unmet needs. I remember when I was a staffer and I would listen to other programs during the budget season, they would start saying, "Oh, just put something together as unmet needs, and then they put it before council so they can approve it for us." Or they might consider it, just put everything together, just put your wish list together. And listening in on different programs, so it's just found. I would now to this day, being a delegate, I always think about that. And sometimes I wish during the budget deliberations at BNF, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, what are the true unmet needs? Are staff just kind of putting a wish list together and hoping that we give them extra money so they would pad their budget? Or is it truly what they actually do need? And so that's something that we, as delegates, being the lawmakers, when we're putting this budget together, we need to be aware of that too also. So when there's a reference that we approve the unmet needs budget, it just comes in. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't really get approved. It's just something that we go by to how can I put it? As a guide, I think you say, as a guide to see which programs really do have these unmet needs. Like, let's say, for example, Office of Navajo Safety Health Administration, Navajo OSHA, they've submitted an unmet needs budget of $72,000, and their justification was to hire one more technician, and for the so they could have increased amount, one more person to assist them when they're out there mitigating COVID-19. So I see the validity in that. But then again, you'll see an unmet need budget justification that this is vehicle rental, travel, office supplies, and it makes you wonder, do they really need that during this time when we don't have that much money in their general funds account? And so you kind of have to go line by line. And if Dominic, if you're on the line, if you have your staff email the unmet needs that you sent to BNF, you could send that to all the 24 delegates so they could have that same document that we were looking at and look at determination. But as far as funding the unmet needs, again, it's almost, in my opinion, my personal opinion, it's almost impossible to do that with the limited resources that we have. And so therefore, but if we did get an influx of money, that we could look at starting to look at those unmet needs. And right now we have the CARES funds that we still have sitting in the bank, and we could look at each program and ask each program, in which of these unmet needs would CARES fund be sufficient to assist in getting your funding in the first quarter. And if we could go that route too, that would help the programs fund their unmet needs using CARES eligible funds. So that's one avenue that I'm thinking about right now too. But on the other hand, to get fully funding the unmet needs, we just need to really go back and look at their budgets. And some of them, like I stated earlier, they have unexpended K accounts. And when do the Navajo Council and the Office of the President and Vice President put their foot down and start mandating that the offices start utilizing their K accounts? And instead of just letting it sit there, because K accounts don't expire. They expire when you when you obligate all of them and encumber them and expend them. That's what I've been hearing. And so, but the first easiest account to actually access is general funds. And from just the conversations I've been hearing and everything is that federal funds are very restrictive. You have to account for every penny. You have to do a report for every penny, and you have to do this and that. Where our general funds, you can spend money and don't even have to really be account. You don't have to give a report. The way I see it. So even general funds is more easier than that. But I hope I answered your question, Shadeja. Chairwoman Eugenia Charles Newton, I didn't kidding at all. And if we could get the table, unmet needs table to all our 24 council delegates so they can know, you'll know what we're talking about. I don't know if there's any other questions. So Speaker Damon, was this the only question?
Madam Chair, Charles Zoon, any follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Speaker Shana. Thank you for answering my questions. I think with the K account, I mean, it's very interesting to see how much money our programs are actually getting in their K account. And I think that it is something that the executive branch could implement and ask that their programs start using before they use general funds. But I think that this council could also start working towards mandating that requirement first, because you are correct in that the general funds, they use it, and there's not very much that is required of them in regards to reporting of those funds. I remember at the very beginning when we got sworn in and we had our council meeting or winter session, I did request that directors provide us reports and let us know, what's going on within their programs. And I remember some delegates saying that it was too much for directors to be doing that we would be wasting time. But I think that, what I'm starting to see as a new delegate is that we have a lot of programs that are really not doing what they should be doing. And we continue to fund them, but we get complaints and we get concerns from citizens saying that these services are not, they're not being provided to them. And these citizens hold us accountable at council, and they want to know why these services are not being provided. And so I think that is I think a lot of that discussion is going to come out during this week when we talk about the budget, because I think it's a question of, are we top heavy? Are we putting more money into these administrative positions and not providing our people the services that they need? Should we be putting more money into making sure that our people are receiving the services? And how do we get people to basically do their job? How do we encourage them to do that? So I've been struggling with that. And again, looking at the budget that we just received this morning, I'm going to be making some amendments to try to assist in this way. The other thing is when we're talking about unmet needs, I think that there is a few programs I know in Law and Order Committee that do need some money. And we keep hearing it. And so when we're talking about unmet needs and we start having that discussion, I will be making my pitch for the programs under Law and Order Committee that do have some unmet needs. And as Shana, Honorable Hanyo stated, it's a matter of looking at reading line by line what the unmet needs are and determining whether those really are considered to be unmet needs versus a Christmas wish list. So, Shana, for answering my question and for helping me through this budget process as we try to get services to the people. Thank you. I'm going back on mute.
Speaker Damon, this is Chair Heaney, if I could do a real quick follow-up. Speaker Damon?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hear you now.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Chairman.
Okay. Just wanted to really point out, Sinata, to Speaker Damon, and ano Sinata, based on sa NSC, I need to that the 24th Navajo Nation Council last year, I believe, in my years with the Navajo Nation government as an employee, I've always heard about general budget. The FY yearly annual budget. And they would only identify the general funds budget in the newspaper, in the media. But last year, the first time I heard in the media the full extent of the Navajo Nation budget, meaning in the big bold letters in the Gallup Independent, I saw Navajo Nation approves $1.2 billion budget because and not very many people, they know how much money the Navajo Nation has, especially from the federal government that we get. That's the biggest bulk of the money that we get, and we don't spend it all. And I think that's what the Chairwoman Charles Newton is alluding to. And so delegates, oversight committees, we need to take another hard look at the expenditures for those and see where we can start moving forward. Again, that's the Speaker Damon.
Thank you. Let me go ahead and continue on down. Honorable Otto.
Good morning. My question is, if we pass the comprehensive budget by Thursday, in realistic terms, no money is shifted around, and or if we start shifting around money, what is the likelihood of having a line item veto, and what branches will be affected? And that's one. I believe council has fell into that line a couple of times where dollars were moved around to what was agreed to the so-called three-branch chiefs agreement. I still disagree with that because it's not law that the three-branch chiefs agrees on the budget amount. But I look at that as invalid. But today we still use that system, and if that's the case, why are we having a budget hearing? And to my understanding, the budget hearings determine what then is the need of the program. But in this case, three-branch chiefs agree to that certain amount, and they disseminate out to the programs that they oversee. So there shouldn't be any questions related to what program's getting what, because that chief for that branch, what so agreed. And council, in this three-branch chief agreement, council was out of it. The councilmen, the delegates are out of it. Every time we go to the three-branch chief agreement or a three branch chief meeting, the meeting only dilates around the three branch chiefs. Very little input from the council is recommended there. So to me, that's one of my concerns. So with that, if we pass this in the late hours of Thursday, special committee meeting, special council meeting, we have about 6 days to the end of the year. We're sure that we will have a document signed by the president, because normally the president takes 10 days to sign off all on all past legislation that has been sent to the president. It's been taking 10 days, especially on the CARES Act. It takes him 10 days to sign that. Well, we need to spend money. And if they're going to treat this the same way, and if that happens, we're going beyond October 1st. And we know that the CR is in place if the budget is not approved. Those are just some of my concerns related to this budget. And when the budget discussion is going on, I was actually thinking, let's just move forward with the CR so we could have last year's budget in place, which is this comprehensive year's fiscal year 2021 that is being put in place. And it could have just made the adjustment, but the body wanted to move forward with a comprehensive budget. And but realistically, we're racing against time with amendments happening to the budget, really moving monies around. I have concerns related to actions of that nature. And one of my thinking is maybe if the council will sit down with the president and chief justice to determine, maybe we could fund the shortfall through the UUFB request to pick up what's left. If a program needs some additional funds, and that process could be vetted, and that way we're not going through a budget process where line item vetoes are going to happen. And I'm sure if the line item vetoes happen, especially if it's in the legislative budget, that is my concern. And this is the reason why line item veto is something that has to be re-looked at, because they look at it the way I see the line item veto being used by the president today is to tie the arms of council. That's basically what it is. And to me, it's this game. And I have concerns over that. And when the budget happens, that's what happens. Because once they tie the arms of council and say, okay, since you're not going to give me this, I'm not going to give you this. 1 year, the line item vetoes the LDA budget, the whole LDA budget, and we have individuals working for us. And the president told us to put the budget back to where it was originally proposed. Through negotiations and so forth, and at the end, nothing changed, and it went back to the original budget. And now, this three branch chiefs agreement, which determined the allocation of the proposed projected budget of the Navajo Nation comprehensive budget. With the three branch chiefs agreement, it's invalid. It's nowhere in that I see that says that the three branch chiefs shall set the budget for the fiscal year or agree to a certain amount. And if that's the case, we shouldn't even be having budget hearings. You know, that's what I mean by knocking nothing. It's just another layer of bureaucracy that's added on there. Could be hearings, the budget is set predetermined by the three branch chiefs agreement. So I don't go on.
Oh, thank you, Honorable so for those comments. With that, colleagues, I'm going to continue on down on the list here. I have Honorable Slater next. Honorable Slater?
Yeah, Shania.
Morning.
This is Delegate Slater. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
I have a question regarding the veterans budget. I know that the Budget and Finance Committee had put together, I think it was a COA or it was a directive to update the budget forms for the Naabik'íyáti committee meeting. And reviewing the budget, it looks like it's the same one. And I was wondering if the Office of Management and Budget, or in your opinion, the appropriate entity to respond to this question, could explain whether or not those forms have been updated according to the Budget and Finance Committee directive. Thank you.
With that, let me go back to the sponsor, maybe sponsor OMB. I don't know if one of your agents can answer that question for Honorable Slater. Sponsor, Chairman Henio.
Yeah, no, Speaker Damon. Delegate Carl Slater. Question for OMB. OMB, are you on the line? I heard you earlier.
Chairman Henio, Dominic Bial is here.
There's a question from Delegate Carl Slater regarding the budget for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. If you'll be able to help me out with answering that question.
Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, per the request from Chairman Henio and responding to Delegate Slater's question about the veterans budgets. As of Thursday, this past Thursday, September 17th, when the Budget and Finance Committee came back in its final meeting to discuss the entire budget, one of the outstanding matters remaining to be determined was the veterans budgets. And it was pointed out by Delegate Crotty that the budget that was being presented was erroneous, meaning it wasn't the one that the Budget and Finance Committee had discussed and requested for previously. So on that day, Thursday, the BNF Committee requested the President's Office and the Veterans Administration to work on that budget and have it submitted hopefully by that day. But it wasn't ready on Thursday, even into Thursday night. So as you saw in the committee report that was presented earlier this morning, there's a directive to OMB to work with the Veterans Administration, and because it's an executive office within the President's office, with the President's office, in order to have those budgets properly prepared and ready for consideration of the NABI committee. So we got those budgets on Friday morning, and those were reviewed and determined by our office to be accurate. And so they were provided to or included in the big budget book that the council delegates now have, and others. And then the numbers are reflected in the revised exhibits to the legislation as well. So the big budget binder that's before you now, the revised and corrected budgets for the Veterans Administration business units are included. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Henio, thank you.
That, I hope that answered your question.
Speaker,
Slater.
I guess, can I ask a follow-up or a clarification? I'm looking at the budget.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm looking at the budget for 10/30/15, 103015. It's page 22, I think report C. And I see that the date was 9/19/2020, time 2:30 p.m. So I see personnel expenses being paid for. I see travel expenses, and I see special transactions, which are just, is there someone? Okay, well, I'll keep going. I do not see like operating expenses for the Central Veterans Administration. So I don't understand how they're going to operate if they don't have any other operating funds. Am I just missing something here? I apologize if I don't see it correctly.
Chairman Henio. Chairman Henio.
Still Speaker Damon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you hear the question from Honorable Slater as a follow-up? I guess there's further in-depth questions about the Office of, actually the Veterans Administration.
Okay. Kaya Mr. Speaker Damon, ayos nanda. Delegate Carl Slater. looking at the revised budget that was submitted by Mr. Zwerlein from Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. This one I have is dated, I believe, signed by Paulson Chaco on September 17, 2020. And in there, the revised budget, they do have $965,287 for personnel, and travel is $6,389. Then from there, we look at the meeting expense, supplies, lease rental, communications, utilities, repairs, maintenance, contractual services. This all zeroed out. And then, except for special transactions, which is $10,604. And then from there, public assistance is zero. And your question is, how is this office expected to operate when there is no operating budget? And the way I see this budget is that Mr. Zwerlein has zeroed out those to fund the personnel expenses. And if you look at the expenses, here is the veteran services officers, account maintenance specialist, a loan officer, office specialist, office assistants, and so forth. And then the executive director, his budget. I mean, that's a huge amount of money for one person there. And so I believe this is where, as Naabik'íyáti, this is where we need to take a look at this budget and say, okay, this is truly unmet needs here. And so therefore, Mr. Zwerlein needs to submit an unmet needs budget to the committee for consideration here. The problem that we've had with this budget here during the BNF committee meetings is that it has taken Mr. Zwerlein almost over a week to come back and respond to the Budget and Finance Committee regarding our concerns with the budget and also the Veterans Agency offices, and to come back with a detailed revised budget. It wasn't until we had to really push the program that he came up with this budget. If it was done timely earlier and then he was submitted an unmet need figures to the committee, I believe the committee would certainly have considered it. And so that's just, I believe, something that we need to look at as an update. And maybe Mrs. Zwerlein, if you're listening in, if you can submit that unmet need request, then that way we can, the committee can also consider looking at it too also. Here now to the speaker, Damon, I yield it back to you.
Speaker, this is Delegate Slater. Can I make a request to OMB very quickly? And then
Yes, go ahead.
My request is just to get the budget forms for the 103015 from the FY20 budget. Or if someone on your staff could assist me with that. I'm trying to go through all my emails and save budgets on my laptop, but I'm failing to find this. Thank you.
Mr. Bial, did you get that request for the FY20 budget?
I understood Delegate Slater wanting to receive a copy of the FY20 budget for business unit 100115.
Yes.
1030115 or 1030015, unless that business unit changed. It's the central administration budget. That's the one I'm asking for. Thank you.
Okay, we'll send it.
Thank you, Mr. Bial. Moving on down, Chairman Nez.
Thank you. Chair Bayman, and honorable members of the 24th Council. Yeah, again. Oh, I start with the program carryovers at their RDC, and I would like to request for her explanation and perhaps clarify the carryover. That's all I would like to have her explain is the carryovers.
Because they're going to get misled again. The FY20 budget is only, 530. And that's how Friday got misled, saying that there's 900,000 in there. But that's what they did was they just put
We can't hear.
one instead of six.
Well, Emmett, what we're doing is
Did you hear me?
the budget
This is Delegate Nez. You guys hear me?
program.
Hear you.
I can hear you, Delegate Nez. Somebody's not muting their phone, so we're just kind of listening to that juicy conversation.
It's a good conversation.
Colleagues, staff members, I do believe someone's not unmuted. Mute your phones. Chairman Nez, the request was to who? Go over the carryover again?
Just an explanation to clarify carryovers.
And you wanted that from who?
The controller.
Okay.
Ms. Kirk.
Mr. Willie, are you on the line?
Mr. Speaker, I'm here. What was the question? I'm sorry. Can I have that restated?
Just an explanation on the carryovers. Well, I guess that's a big question. Chairman Nez, is there specifics that you wanted?
Well, I believe everybody spoke on carryovers, and I just wanted a clarification from the controller's office as to how they would clarify and explain carryovers in their own words.
Okay. Mr.
Okay.
Willie?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Ness. Carryovers are approved by the Navajo Nation Council. In this case, for the Navajo Nation, they are reserves. So we calculate those numbers. We take away all the expenses, any encumbrances or contracts. We actually add those back in. The remaining balance is what will carry over from FY20 into FY21. Carryovers do not include the personnel because personnel lapse overrules those object codes. Whatever is written within the legislation stating that those carryovers, so say you want a specific object code carried over, you specify the object code, and if there's an amount in there, usually there's a limit or a cap on it that says up to a certain dollar amount. So when we calculate the carryovers, we actually look at that line item, make sure that there's enough funding in there. If there's not, we only carry over what the balance is, which is usually less. And that actually is a reserve of the fund balance. So it doesn't take away from any of the remaining amounts. So when you do the closeouts, you have your revenues, which is our general fund revenue that come in, and that revenue is supposed to cover the budget. You take away all the expenses. You reserve all the contracts that get carried over because contracts carry over at times from one fiscal year to another, depending on their criteria. And essentially that is, and you also have a number of other items that you reserve, such as contingency. There's other liabilities in which the Navajo Nation owes. So all those are calculated. Whatever's remaining, the carryovers is part of the reserve. So that funding is set aside for that specific carryover in the new fiscal year. So that process usually takes 3-4 weeks to calculate all the numbers and ensure that everything is correct. Once those numbers are all created and calculated, the balances are sent over to Office of Management and Budget, and they also look at it and then verify that all the numbers that we calculated. So there's two sets of eyes that are looking at it. If there's differences, we both look at the numbers and then we go over what the possibilities were. Once the number is determined, Office of Management and Budget sends out the letters indicating to the program what their dollar amount is for the carryover. I hope this process is understandable. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Chair Damon, follow up, sir?
Yes, go ahead, Chairman Ness.
Thank you, Chair. Aro, Mr. Willie, here in Sago, Aro, Donan Tagab, just not kind of in Nasan. Did you say it does not include the personnel? That's my follow-up question.
Mr. Speaker, may I answer the question?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Okay, thank you. Delegate, yes, the carryover numbers do not include the personnel. As we calculate the personnel lapse, those dollar amounts are actually calculated. In this year's budget resolution, it appears that they've allocated any of the savings to a GWA plus all these other programs in which they're going to fund. I believe it's part of the body of the legislation. I don't recall them offhand. But the personal lapse sweeps all these accounts, and there is a separate resolution for that also, Delegate Ness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Willie, with that, we move on down. Honorable Keon Begay, Jay, floor is yours.
Speaker. Well, first of all, I need our a the process could have been only could each of the committees oversight program specifically programs budget which are presented as an oversight. Oversight programs on the oversight committee. For example, RDC audit Hasata. Did out and has to do the whole actually no a then he has not go oversight program by resolution could over DJ or equal chairman a budget finance which present a did out a quite here get the need AD programs AD hot adjust the hot on in the resolution gives quality budget finance. So a quite that out in Naabik'íyáti that do it and had that about community quite a cocoa a quite just I used to be a job could do question the hard existing grades and fish or not any or see could do have the other areas within the resource oversight programs. A cocoa to a baby to a codo did a cocoa a yard in the chateau baby casey so a baby codo baby a cocoa a quacky decent speaker a quacky John here oversight program and me first one bahas and baby nation and also scheme each other shot now in Lada. So maybe through my second round ask the program or OMB or the controller if they have any specific requests of the oversight programs that the RDC oversees that specifically are requesting for the carryover. If you could be able to provide that information with the council, that way we make the argument to my justification that, and each of us, all of us will be defending and protecting and advocating for our programs. So, how do we compromise and come to a consensus or an agreement, give and take for our programs that we oversee? Programs because they need into piece of they kito piece of but okay the kito by kito quite a look at our show they change the kakugo ecuador ato yego the guest ecuador they not the kili but I see hot a do hot ni go ashik ako da ai ope kitchen na an shupan is that the story ada kodo be jizi kodato e hatsi ko ebe ben kodo shant an fliniki koje division of natural resource, Department of Transportation, EPA, Division of Economic Development, and all across all the all the programs. Now, the other area that was brought up earlier, a program to create a no the Naabik'íyáti. The base of Banito, no the Kodo. A lot of time, Kodo 6-day contract, the Queen Shiba Hadasito, Bahasito, last year. Kodo not so strong. He songs 6-day contracts. I think all the yard in Dengi Chateau in Navajo, Washington. Quebec, that any baby much other yard Adnako, which is a whole eat on this. Getting needle, new thing, Ecuador. Even much advocate the 6-day contracts. And I believe I made recommendation for the chairs to be part of the advocacy. You take much that hate much kodo by yesterday or Tika the programs I see to general funds of the Yeko Kodo is on a baby major or Tinka. They been on the stop on Shibina Kodo, Yan Dingi, or our age that there's we encourage people, we encourage programs to go out and seek additional funding. Yan Dingi open the happy eat at the door, there's happy dot after the Kodo. The prime example, Conca veterans program, Bahana or three, the Kokadili Hadeshu, published from uninsured veterans, Bahana. The latest one was requesting for direct service on the Navajo Nation legislation, response on the resolution ban DJ seeking for direct service. Take at Arjun or Skit O at Anana Aquata, a program director, veterans administrators. Out ego Halit out the Sato Dick at Shohin leader, which at the whole G stick at Yari limited up at the Hoyet on this. In with other Asha and Washington to 8 lots of Clinic to E agent his server that Iliasa. Upon Hague, what they were just supplementing the United States government of helping our veterans, which is I don't have a problem with that. But my point is that the initial Sakabin that initial the Kudon his last song Unity. He didn't install the stop able to Zlag or operation beta initially Hui Ate like Hut Yaliki to student here could the air he veterans to keep a punished install this. You see, keep in yet hut in go things at the Doye go by me to eat. Other at all that, but the senators, the House of Representatives. As of today in this week, I have not received any official response. I sent out 15 to the senator, actually not 8 senators, 2 from each of the states. And then at least 15 House of Representatives. Upon Hillary are there in the cut off left. It's the last so could be buttons. Programs I don't be hard. Offices I don't be hard. Oyaliki are there in Habit Hapo Shake upon he could the are there Washington there. Yali Ziniki could the then Ziniki with the English could don't the veterans. Yan Babin story. Joe Quackage when you attend the Yego Bahu to eat. The administrators. I don't know if we need to modify to direct the Veterans Administration to continue to seek funding from the federal government for our veterans program. Because they are the Kodoya, Limiki Ate, Kokodo, because not so Limiki be done on the store, the church in Queens, and go a tired Yaldo, not sauce and Limiki, Queen she, Bondante, Kado. I mean, what's the purpose of passing a resolution? I mean, what's the purpose of sending off these resolutions? And on top of that, why aren't we getting any official response? The Queen should be Hasi, larger, some target speaker. She thought that I'm not so the break we over that stop the not the cheat something to go down. Train Z with the Bashing stop advantage and not about Z. The twitch know that the Queen sheep are yesterday. That ego DA with the yes, speak up Hashi base at the Ohiki could be added. We supplement a lot of these funding coming from the federal government. It's a whole zone. And Sydney, the Hope Washington, Trinity, and Sito Diego. It's a hate in the donor programs for you. The only thing I get back from programs is that Barnes Husson, the Easter Barnes Husson, she been getting on that so arts with men dignity and stop out on Barnes Husson. A quite easy like a joy could speak a budget hold. Maybe that could be one of the legislative concerns or conditions of appropriation. The Kahon Ya or put the shoe stop and Ecuador. It is not so dinky other, we put the Joya, we didn't eat a $100 after without out. Also, we do have 2 resolutions and some documents that I sent directly to the state governor, to the Veteran Service officers, to our legislative, to our congressional delegation at Washington, D.C., and the Veterans Administration at Washington, D.C. So, I don't know, maybe that's all she don't know about the year, we could do it out of the heart, the nonsense. The head of she kick out, she kicked. For single good that thought is she go at the shoe that thought say the she only thought is the not the snow that's again, but not sit the left thought. Okay, quite you is just a really I think a quite his last so basic Betan bad na all staffing betan hotar na limiti keep on ye hot. The veteran service officers, VSOs here that should be at a minimum being in place aside from the regular administrative matters for each of our veterans administration at each of the agency. So the VSO, at least one or two at each agency at a minimum would be the advocacy for a position be paid by the federal government, not at WINRAP level. The administration, at least VSOs at each of the agencies would be very much needed on this. At least 10 positions to each the agency. And we do have the justification because we have 10,000 plus veterans. I mean, they would really just they would really boost the justification for our federal government to consider. How much of our veterans are just going to be voting again? So how the deacon budget by year PDB been much equipo. Katosa be so good deep and deal the steep and deal the spito in the doctor in the dots. But nonetheless, we continue and I continue to send message to the state and federal level regarding additional and having direct service on the Navajo Nation. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Keon, for those comments, recommendations. Honorable Keon, if there's anything if you want, we can start setting up meetings, individuals again. As you know, in the past, we've set up numerous different telecommunication conference sessions with congressional leaders, and we can do that round again to make sure that individual congressional leaders know the direction that you're and the initiatives that you're trying to lead here on the nation. So I have no problem setting those up again, Honorable Keon, when Congress gets back into session. Moving on down, Chairman Daniel So.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia. Speaker Damon, Chair of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, and members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, legislative staff, and staff from the other two branches. Basically, I'm concerned that we don't know the exact amount that would appear in the carryover funds. And we basically want to start transferring and using funds. And I have a problem with that. I would rather the discussion of carryover funds be done after we know an exact amount, as had been defined by the Budget and Finance Committee and OMB. The other is the clarification that OOC, Mr. Willie, provided for carryover funds. And we received the document F21 carryover listing revised spreadsheet. And in there, as I review the items for all the folks that requested carryover, under And specifically, Mr. Willie defined that personnel isn't to be part of this carryover budget request, but under RDC AU 3120, number 115027. Over in the fourth column, it says personnel and remaining budget unable to fill positions due to COVID-19. And then farther down, 115039, Division of Natural Resources, Navajo Nation Energy Office, 462,950, and it again lists personnel in the amount of 74,000 and operating in the amount of 388,000, and it's the notation funds will allow to hire energy manager and transmission technical staff. So in that aspect, there would be, again, the carryover amount seems to be a moving target. And so it's, I think we're, by discussing this item, we're really changing our focus to basically let's look at the main budget and do what BNF and OMB, OOC is recommending. Let's look at this carryover budget in the middle of November, and let's focus on the main operating budget that we basically had considered. That would be my thoughts, Mr. Speaker and Chairman Damon. I really feel like we need to get to the heart of the matter, the heart of basically the what we've all worked on. So, and I don't mean to be disrespectful of the RDC, but just knowing the clarifications that was provided, that's where my focus went to these two items, members of the RDC. So, kwagit ay ato sa baho no sendoli. Sa katesa si lego at the sedo ayan kato hatisi baho nisi ada kwagi ay behatse. Hot a di baho nisi given na ay kwagi kato behasti doli. Ado again, the brunt of this whole budget was carried by Budget and Finance Committee, and we appreciate each and every member of the Budget and Finance Committee to have the perseverance to sit day in and day out to review this comprehensive budget. The other aspect is the K accounts basically is state, federal monies, and some of those K accounts are multi-year, and they're based on specific grant requirements. And again, perhaps sometime during the budget year, we specifically sit down to review those personnel that are hired under the K accounts have specific jobs. And granted, the operating budget the other aspects aside from personnel. They do supplement. And remember, they can't supplant the Navajo Nation operating budget. They supplement. They can't take the place of the Navajo Nation general fund budget. That's where we have to be careful on how we approach the K accounts. That would be my input regarding that, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the rest of the listeners on this call. With that, back to you, Cecilia, Speaker Dana.
Thank you, Chairman Daniel. So, that, colleagues, let me continue on down on the list. I have Honorable Vince James up next.
Good morning. Yellow Hair's on the line too, so just for the record. Speaker, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's another. Although need the last honey. Yeah, the business. He did need donate. Although that is not uneasy. In regards to budget, if you guys can give me some recommendations, your thoughts in regards to the 3% salary adjustment, salary increase. Let me first say that we all know that our support staff in any organization, our support staff make upper management, leadership look really decent and pretty when it comes to work ethics, work duties. And by me saying that, I think we really need to consider or maybe even reconsider that 3%. Majority of the Navajo Nation's position titles, majority of those position titles that make their bosses look good, make their supervisors look good, are the non-exempt staff, which are the support staff, your office aides, your office specialists, your accounts maintenance specialists, and down the line. And our police officers are non-exempt, our regular police officers' positions. So my thought is that, this 3% increase should only be for non-exempt positions, because they work, non-exempt staff. If you've worked in the Navajo Nation system, you know how dedicated and how workaholic our non-exempt employees are to their supervisor, to the extent for a supervisor not to have that mindset of retaliation. Our non-exempt staff go above and beyond their duties to avoid some sort of bullying from supervisors or sort, and they do the work. If you, as my colleagues, don't take that into consideration, maybe one of the second option is to do a threshold to where we have any of our Navajo employees whose salaries are $40,000 and less receive a 3% increase. And know that our non-exempt employees are not eligible for overtime. And when this pandemic happened, you know, most of our non-exempt employees were out. And most of them were, so most of these individuals were barely making ends meet. And it's like that for most of our non-exempt employees. Every paycheck, every payroll that they get, they barely make ends meet. Yet we have exempt employees on the other side that we're giving bonuses to because they worked through the pandemic. Yet we're giving exempt employees overtime pay, so many hours. And the balance is not there. And those are two of my thoughts. I really want my colleagues to take that into consideration. And third, and I think it will make a big difference when it comes to the budget portion, that if we concentrate on the non-exempt, we might have a higher budget a less budget to worry about. This is not with any disrespect to supervisors or upper management, but it's just in the matter of how can we continue to support our individuals, our Navajo people that are barely meeting the ends meet every paycheck. How can we assist them? How can we appreciate them? And I bet you anything that all the binders that we receive from each of these programs, it's those individuals that put those stuff together, are the non-exempt employees. Majority of the work is done by those non-exempt employees. And their salary is low. I mean, even if you look at an office specialist, I mean, that's $9 an hour. And if they're barely meeting it, I mean, just imagine how they're finally barely trying to get through this pandemic. The one that I want to know is of your thought is in regards to what Shanale, Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, has brought before us, is in regards to the exterior funds. Maybe we need to do an amendment to the legislation to indicate that any exterior funds or federal funds, 50% of that should be utilized first before general funds are expended. Maybe we need to put that language in this amendment to assist our federally funded programs that receive exterior funds from the federal government to help them spend those federal fundings. Right? It's like a bottleneck, and I've said this before, the bottleneck with OMB regarding these federal funds. It's a bottleneck with OOC, and then it's a bottleneck with President's office when it comes down to contracts. Maybe we need to put that language in the legislation to help out our federally funded programs to spend those funds right away. Maybe we need to do that. We are the lawmakers. We have that opportunity to indicate that information in the legislation so OMB can say, hey, staff, this is what's in the legislation. Maybe they'll end up saying, hey, here's a priority for us now, that we need to make sure that these programs that are federally funded need to spend 50% before they get into the general funds account. And somehow we need to hold that in the legislation to make sure that we are accountable to utilizing a lot of these federally funds, and for a lot of these federally funds not to be sent back to the federal government. At least we'll be utilizing those funds for the actual general funds. And a lot will be through that whole federally funded program process, going through the whole review and all of that. I think if we put that language in there, that will help the process move quicker for these programs that receive federally funds as well. Another one is, the last one, I promise you guys, the last one is in regards to waiving codes. And within the legislation, to be language that allows for waiver. And one prime example is like the waivers that we put in the legislation, of where it requires a budget to be approved by 20 days before the fiscal year. That is another fine example that we need to understand what kind of language we put into our legislations for our departments, the key departments that hold and moves these budget forward to move things in a faster manner for our programs to utilize these funds. And our federally funded programs are really, really hurting and trying to say, hey, we have this much federally funded program, but it's always the holdup. We're always told we have to go through this process, and then we're told by this program. It's not the only program. Understand that there's other programs that we have to oversee. There's other programs, submitted their documents before you. By then, we're already halfway through the fiscal year. So, akwagi has anigi, be hasti o lehiko. What are in Ishtan Isla do lehet akiba to keshash. And Anita Shinalado Yahanana Diki Alambike in regards to what is it that we can do? How can we assist the programs? We're not actually doing anything. And I think it's time that we add certain languages in the legislations to assist these programs to utilize their funds. Majority of their funds within the first and the second quarter of the fiscal year, not the third, and not definitely, of course, in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, left and right, bonus, no bonus, basically. Trying to zero out the balance, and that shouldn't be the case. Unlimited.
Thank you, Honorable James, for that comments and concerns. Let me go on, and then I'll go back. One more individual on the floor, and then I'll go back to you, Chairman Hino. Honorable Adoso, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Vicar. Just listening to the discussion, and when I got on to now, and looks like that was the main discussion of this Whenever this meeting started at 7, carryovers. No, let's go into an executive session and let's all agree. We all agree, we all align that there's no more carryovers. Let's make an amendment in this comprehensive budget that we're not going to honor these carryovers. Looking at the bigger picture, we can look at legislation to mandate that or put into the books no more carryovers. I have a legislation that's going through that's going to eliminate that. And just by hearing the discussions, I really hope that the carryovers related to my colleagues that have concerns over carryovers, I hope you support it. That way we won't have this conversation and we're just talking strictly to the budget. This carryovers, I just nothing. I go to handle. There's nothing in the books that says that a delegate, any delegate shall not entertain carryovers. Let's go into maybe a 30-minute executive session to agree to this. And if we can agree to this, let's put an amendment into this comprehensive budget indicating no carryovers across the board, even for the branches. Carryovers are good for programs that provide essential services. Yes, there's programs that tend to get carryovers each year, but by the end of that next fiscal year, they're not expending it. That tells you that the program can operate with less. But this year, due to the fact of COVID, it allowed a lot of this dollars not to be expended. I don't that these in Washington were based on these K counts. These K counts are restricted. They're only used for a certain purpose. And for us to utilize some of those K counts for tribal operations, then go into utilizing the Navajo Nation dollars, such as the UUFB or what the general fund has allocated them. These programs that are under the that get federal dollars through security contracts or grants from the federal government or other sources. So I don't I really like for you guys to consider my legislation to do away with carryovers across the board. Every operation, whether it's the executive branch, judicial, legislative, and the chapters, we can do that. Yeah.
Thank you, on Otto. So that I'll be all here.
Yeah, Speaker, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
24th Navajo Council. Yeah, I should ask about this. Did the grants and contract or carry over? I see about this. All the episodes, but that media. So those carry 638 money. It's different from the general fund general fund, it also equity 638. They're made for a what needs to be used for a 638. So that bahigit a scope of work with that too. This is a question. But if you want to use 638 or contract or grant, it is start or we're going to have a problem with 630 Navajo Nation general funds. It is not on about out of the carry money, so it's going to be really rely on the executive director. There's one should be coming for a budget finance committee at all time. It all be started in the card. There's a personal capeso. Hansa beta initial budget balance. Each of the Bahana honey. As I put out this at on this. Others not on this side is unequal out. Well, Sony, so could they just care but that is can't stick on it. We work with executive fresh. A credit state of these little credit precipitate equal. The credit carry over money, a general funds is a non additional on a better job, but I see that a just a chapter at all times, chapter 110 chapters. I always get carry over money, but proven the insurance on it. According 638 grant the contract is offset it's not on it. Others are non additional. The first be approved on later 164 process. I thought could they carry the grants or contract cost. I thought about 4 5 months behind or 8 months behind schedule. You create thought as not on it. Create about $100. 8 or should be about PG as not on it. Carry money share about it on thought it's $1. Especially if you want to each chapter become that of I saw it as not on in Leo Cardinals and become on. So they craggy it all out of that and the there. But being a committee should make a director to bring a executive director, review their contract or grants at all times. So it has monitored all the big as not on it. Out of credit exempt and non-exempt behind any key stock peso between the Haliela care money. It's up subject to non-exempt or exemption to ADK, so we need to see that expenditure on that one too. Like to say this, I think Budget Finance Committee on the line too. We need to see this very close to expenditures. What has been paid for these non-exempt and exempt essential staff? No, let's see that one too. Make sure the pay are made correctly. The exempt non-exempt ito no nahanese. What end asaha just each in the so we need to probably see this expenditure report on that one for every Navajo Nation account that we have, so that be accountability. We need to look at these through a budget finance committee. Aron ni behas din the budget finance committee when there. You can say a peso to know in the my colleagues a actual closer under the buyer to care over money ki add in the expenditure area that three branch chief and not as $1,000 study you by Kenny. Thank you, my committee. Appreciate it for your help too, as my colleagues in the 2021 comprehensive budget. I'll make shorter so it's national never piece by I appreciate by hearing no could have sit on the speaker a share lot of $8 Thank you very much. Go back to you, speaker, and go back on mute now. Thank you. Yeah.
With that, I'm gonna go back to Chairman Henio, sponsor. Comments, questions, direction.
Okay, Speaker Damon, our chair of the Naabik'íyáti committee. And your comments regarding the topic before us today. And one of the main topic is carryover. And it's an ongoing topic, undated by just like I've been part of the Navajo Nation government. carry over. How much money can we carry over unexpended money that we never got to spend? And if you look at the expenditures of each department programs, they halfway go in March. Some of them are only at 20%, less than 25%, when they should be at 50%. You look at June, at 75%, the programs are not even spending that much money, and then at the end of the year, when they're the budget, when you get the budget summary report, and each of the oversights, they get a budget summary report for the programs they oversee. And you see some of them barely hovering at not even 50%. And this year, Ava has enough COVID-19 to get but in the years past, if you look at that same program, you'll see that they would still be at that same percentage if you were to go back like 5 years on expenditures. And in September, August, their percentage would be real low. Then at the end of the year, they want to carry over that money, or they say we have unmet needs. We don't have enough money to know. And it makes you wonder, thinking, how can they be in need of money when they don't even spend all of that money in that year? And so that's why the question we asked was carryover money. Delegate Vice Chair Odoso, underneath our legislation to eliminate the carryover provisions from the annual budget. So that question came up before the Budget and Finance Committee. What happens to that money? And Controller, if you're listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it goes back into the UUFB, I believe that's what we were told. So it becomes part of the money that we reach into again for any projects that we need funded. So it still serves its purpose. If we eliminate any carryover, we'll go back into the Navajo Nation unexpended, unreserved fund balance for any future projects that each delegate wishes to have legislation for. It'll just be added to that pot of money. But at the same time, there is also the Budget and Finance Committee at length discussed the need for transparency, meaning that when it comes to carryovers, there needs to be an identified amount to be carried over. And even that, we feel more comfortable knowing that this is exactly what it is. If you have a program that says, "Oh, just give me 20,000 at the minimum," and or remaining balance, I know. What if the remaining balance is 200,000, and let's say we approve it at 20,000 or remaining balance? I mean, they're allowed to carry over any amount. Even now, that's where the committee needs to really understand that, and that's why the Budget and Finance took that action of waiting until November when all the closeouts happen from each of the programs, and therefore an identified amount. And that way we can consider an amount to get carried over, and for what purpose too also. Is it for a purpose that's needed to complete a certain project, or is it money just to have on the side in case you need it? So you kind of have to look at that again. Delegate Vince James August and September, they go into a buying frenzy. They start buying all kinds of furniture and special transaction jackets.
embroidered jackets, just to spend that money, but they don't have to carry it over. And ADG, that's something that we have to be mindful of too. And so that's why how much of oversight should we have on this budget process on an annual basis? And so I guess one is that I support the notion for budget and finance of the action we took to wait till November to get the final amounts. Adin dahajo by begin the and we have the actual amounts after it goes out. And so that's what the committee decided, and that's what I support here. Although amendments to that Hegi, I heard the amendments and each delegates. You're right to make an amendment, but work with legislative council. As stated earlier to Shinanta, Menyazi, amendment. Instruction was to work closely with legislative council to get that amendment, and I'm moving so that way we can entertain it, and whether the committee accepts that amendment or not. So, ADG, you're going to be talking about the amendment. Maybe start working on it right away so we can start moving forward. Today I thought you saw it's 10 minutes to 11, and we have a 2-hour window where we start with the Navajo Nation Council. So I was told that hopefully I answered some of the questions or comments that were made. Let me know, and I can offer a more precise and expensive response. Thank you, Speaker Damon.
Thank you. Back, colleagues, we do have about an hour and 14 minutes left until the end of NABI. Is there any other further comments, questions at this time? If there's none, once,
Speaker.
going twice. Who's
Speaker?
Yes. Who was the first? Honorable Stewart, was that you?
Eugene.
Honorable Eugene So.
One have to be Eugene.
Honorable Eugene So, go ahead.
Yeah, if we're discussing amendments, I think it was Mr. Henio, Honorable Henio was saying that there's a question on the legislation that's before us with regards to areas where it says only Navajo Nation, there's no council with them, and a few of them in there. Seems like I think we may to make amendments to add on the council within that area, Navajo Nation Council. I counted about maybe 16 of them on the legislation. If need be, I'll make an amendment to add on the council to the Navajo Nation. Make a motion.
Okay, it's on, you mean the amendment for page 6? On page 6, only Eugene So?
There's a set of areas where like page 1, line 28, it says Navajo Nation. It doesn't say the council on it. And then page 2, 1 and 9, then page 3, 23, and then page 4, 8 and 28, line 8 and 28, and page 5, line 1, 7, 11, 19, 26, and then page 6, 1 and 4. That's as much as I saw on there. That doesn't only says Navajo Nation, but others say Navajo Nation Council on them.
Okay, so The only one that needed that from what I know that needs to be changed is the one that's on page 6. The rest of them are referring to the Navajo Nation. Well, okay, right. On page 128, it would be the Navajo Nation Council hereby adopts the Navajo Nation physical, or would it be the Navajo Nation hereby council? But in the prior years, it just said Navajo Nation. Chairman Hino, this was a question for your reference that you wanted the amendment. So I'll look to your guidance too as well.
Okay, I'm trying to look for that. What's the part of the email?
This was just something you said in your opening statement that you're looking for an amendment on page 6.
Hold on here.
Where it said Navajo Nation, but needed to say Navajo Nation Council.
Oh, yes. Hold on here. Hold on, let me open my there was a typo in the here. Where was it at? I'm looking at let me through my email again. Let's see here. There was a typo, and let me find that. I mean, this is it. Nope.
Question of privilege, Speaker?
Yeah, well, so I'm looking at
Okay, hold on. Madam Chair, question of privilege.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I'm going through my email, and I know that Honorable Jamie Hanyo did mention that we would be getting some information on the breakdown of unmet needs. I don't see that. So has that email been sent, or when will it be sent so we can start looking at the unmet needs request? Thank you.
it was sent by Dominic Bial at 9:26 a.m.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then also for Shana, Delegate Eugene So's reference on the legislation, page 6 again. If you look at this under line 1A, way at the end of that little paragraph, on line 3, it just says Navajo Nation, passed by the Navajo Nation of Naabik'íyáti. And my question when I was reading was, should it say Navajo Nation Council? And then if you look at the same page on line, let's see here, 9, that sentence is to develop the Navajo Nation Capital Improvement Plan in accordance with the plans, capital improvement plan submitted. I don't know if that's, for me, it kind of it didn't sound right at the time when I was barely waking up, but now maybe it sounds better since I'm awake. But just the main one up on top, though, page 6, line 3. Navajo Nation, should it say council or is it correct the way it's written?
I'm going to refer that over to Legislative Council. Page 6, line 3.
Speaker, this is Kristen Lowell. We can add the word council on page 6, line 3 after the word nation for clarity and consistency with subparagraph D. I also wanted to mention that section 4 was amended at the Budget and Finance Committee. So let me read the proper language. That section 4 is going to read as follows. The Division of Community Development is directed to develop the Navajo Nation Capital Improvement Plan in accordance with the plan submitted by branches, divisions, and chapters. This plan is to be developed by the end of the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. Speaker.
Okay. So with that, Honorable Eugene, so it would just be an amendment on page 6, line 3, after nation, you'd add in the word council. Honorable Eugene, so do you want to raise that amendment?
Yeah, go ahead. Make that amendment.
Okay, page 6, line 3, after nation. Just add in council. Yeah, it's that one. All right, is there a second? Once, Honorable Freeland. Hey, with that, I don't think there's any discussion on this. This is just adding the word council in there. But
Should
no,
I,
you never know.
Chairman
Henio.
Speaker Damon?
Yeah, Chairman Henio, go ahead.
Okay, I guess should I? Eugene, so Kristen had read an entirely different language in section 4, directive to the Division of Community Development COP. What she read is totally different from what's written in the legislation. So if she could, Eugene, so could add that language from Kristen, what she read as part of his amendment to redo the language on section 4 in Hinchkedo, if that's possible, Speaker Damon.
It's already in it's already in Budget and Finance Committee's report. That amendment passed at your committee.
Okay, big on it. I'm fine with it then. I'll go back on mute.
Okay. There's no other comments, questions on Amendment 1. Go to board.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Key Allen votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels.
I vote green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Jamie Henio.
Green.
Honorable Jamie Henio votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Rick Ness.
Delegate Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Vote green. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So.
I vote green.
Honorable Otto still votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
I vote green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Almer Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable
Delegate Brown
Purnell.
votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Purnell Holona.
Hello, votes green.
Honorable Purnell Holona votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Speaker with a vote of 22 yeas and 0 nays.
Colleagues, Amendment 1. Honorable Eugene So, with a vote of 22 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. That colleague, go back to the board. I don't have anybody on the board. For once.
Speaker.
Twice.
Speaker.
Who says
Question or
speaker?
privilege, Speaker?
Who said speaker?
This is Edmund, sir.
Oh, Chairman Yazzie, hold on. Let me, Chairman Yazzie, hold on to that question. I'll come back to you after the question of privilege. Madam Chair Charles Newton.
Thank you, Speaker. I just went through my email, Chanel, Honorable Jamie Hanyo. I don't see that email from Dominic Bial from this morning at 9. I also did a search in my email for Bial, and I don't see the information in there. So can we get that breakdown for unmet needs? I believe the last email I got from Dominic Bial was back on April 17th, and that was for legislation 0081. Thank you.
We're forwarding that over to you right now, Madam Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you,
To the
Speaker.
whole council again. With that, Chairman Yazzie.
Speaker, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Speaker and members of the council and everyone that is listening, would like to go ahead, and I know we talked a lot about the carryovers, but I would like to make a motion, and with the help of our legislative legal staff, it's completed. And the amendment would just be a carryover, my colleagues, that is already there. And Eastern Land Commission has a lot of work that still needs to be done, and especially the national level, which is the NELI exchange, the Northern Eastern Land Exchange, for the New Mexico side. We've been working on this project for years, and maybe with this council, like with IHS, we can finally lock it in and get this done. And so my amendment would be, I do have it, Speaker, money that's already allocated and that's already there, but we just need to transfer this to the year of 21. And the business unit number is 101-0-27, and that's an amount of 24,860. And then also the other one is 2,500. It's the 24,000 is for consulting, and then the other is the contract services. That unit number is 101-027. So if I could have staff read the amendment, it's already printed out. I would really appreciate that and ask for the support of our colleagues so we can get, this is for Eastern Land Commission, my colleagues, and this would get our work done for the NELI project that we've been working on. Speaker?
Yes. Hey, colleagues, there's questions coming in on my text message asking if I thought we said there was no carryover. Colleagues, if if you wish to have no carryover, now that would be the time to voice your concern on that. That would be my suggestion. There's nowhere that says that you cannot not have an amendment for a carryover. So, and if it's unanimous that there's no carryover, then like every other amendment, then that would set precedent. But so I recognize Honorable Chairman Yazi's carryover request. With that, Mr. Rico, you'll read the amendment into the record.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, Amendment number 2.1, page 4, line 8, insert new paragraph as follows. Underscore D, the Navajo Nation hereby approves carryovers of general fund unexpended balances from Navajo Nation fiscal year 2020 into fiscal year 2021 from unexpended operating fund balances for divisions, departments, and programs as listed in Exhibit I. 2, the carryover exhibit will be inserted as new Exhibit I. All exhibits will be relettered accordingly. 3, renumber reletter succeeding paragraphs or sections accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes, Mr. Speaker. Attached with this amendment is a new Exhibit I. There is a business unit 101027 Eastern Navajo Land Commission consulting up to $24,860. Additional notes 6520. Business unit number 101027 Eastern Navajo Land Commission. Other contractual services up to $2,500. Additional notes 6910. Mr. Speaker.
Hey, with that, motion by Chairman Yazi, is there a second? Went once, twice, went 3 times.
I'll second. Also.
Honorable Otto seconds. On Amendment 2. Any comments, questions on Amendment 2? Went once, went twice, went 3 times. Go to board on Amendment 2.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
Sir Rich.
I'm sorry, Honorable Elmer Begay.
Sir Rich.
Honorable Keelan Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes red.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes red. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty votes green.
I'll vote red.
I'm sorry, Ms. Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty votes red. Honorable Herman M. Daniels.
I vote green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Pernell Halona.
green.
Honorable Hannah Holona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
I guess not being on Eastern Land Commission, I have to support green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Naabik'íyáti James votes red.
Honorable Vince James votes red. Honorable Rick Nez.
Del Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, red.
Honorable Carl Slater votes red. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
I vote red.
Honorable Daniel So votes red. Honorable Eugene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So.
Green chili.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Almer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Almer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Naabik'íyáti votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
I vote green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Speaker with 18 yeas and 5 nays.
That, colleagues, Amendment 2, 18 in favor, 5 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries. That, everybody else on the board. One.
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newton.
I'm Chair Charles Newton.
Speaker, thank you. So just for clarification, now that the vote has been taken, we are now going to be considering the carryover funds. And are we going to start that discussion today? Thank you.
If you have amendments ready to go, Madam Chair, you're more than welcome to do amendments for carryovers.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be sending that to Dana. Thank you.
Okay.
Speaker, this is Delegate Slater.
Hold on, Honorable Slater. There was, well, I can't hear.
Speaker?
I mean, if you just say speaker and you don't say your last name, I can't hear, or you don't say your name, I can't hear you, and I can't put you in the queue. Like Honorable Delegate Slater just indicated his name. So I'm good, Honorable Delegate Slater, and then the next individual. Honorable Slater?
Thank you, Speaker. Two things. One, I think if we're going to vote on the amendments, even though on the Zoom it shows the amendment in content, the exhibits should be distributed to delegates so that we know precisely what's contained in them and aren't just receiving an oral report. I'm constantly refreshing my email and I didn't see. Oh, never mind. Sorry, it just came in. Well, I apologize. The second question was going to be if they could send Exhibit I, which to me was not labeled as Exhibit I, but we confirm with the Office of Legal Counsel that the document titled 224 FY21 carryover ELC. That's the wrong document. I apologize. I'm going to contact the Office of Legislative Counsel myself. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay. All right. Honorable Otto.
Speaker, I want to entertain an amendment, and I'm just wondering if Dana's office is done with it. I submitted 2 requests and related to carryovers. Thank you. I haven't get a response from Dana's office yet. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Barbara or Ms. Lowell regarding Honorable Otto's request.
Thank you, Speaker. We are putting both of his requests together. They'll be there in just a bit.
Okay. Thank you. That, colleagues, I don't see anybody else on the board. Colleagues, again, we're in Naabik'íyáti committee. If we go into council, the only difference, you still are able to make amendments. You're still available to do any kind of additional work towards amendments or policy changes in the budget. The only thing that's going to be different is everyone's on a time scale of 5 minutes. So as of right now, we do have 44 minutes left, and there's going to be our Office of Legislative Services needs about 1 hour to, especially because of the amendments that were made here, need to go into the budget documents and then sent over certified by myself, the chair, and then send that back into the certification and then send that back out to everyone. So that's why we're requesting at least to be done by noon today, colleagues, so that we can go into session at 1.
Chairman Damon, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith,
go ahead. Put on the queue.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Good morning again. Good morning to all. I'd like to put a legislative concern in regarding CPMD. The veterans are going to be building homes throughout the Navajo Nation, and plus homes are going to be built throughout the Navajo Nation with the CARES Fund, and there is no building code. I tried to get this in at the Budget and Finance, but due to time restraints, I couldn't get this legislative concern in. So I'd like to do a legislative concern on CPMD to come up with a building code by the second quarter of this FY 2021, if all possible. We need a building code. There was buildings that were made on the Navajo Nation, started out with the veterans in good faith. However, it was just no code to go by. Windows weren't able to shut, doors weren't able to close properly, foundations weren't built to specs, you name it. There was other concerns and problems. So I'd like to put that in there as a legislative concern under CPMD, second quarter, to come up with a standardized building code. I know that the Navajo Nation 23rd Council tried to put that in place, but they wanted to put others in there. But I'm just specifically saying building codes reference to homes, not commercial. We can do the commercial later. We can do other infrastructure later, but I'm just concerned about the homes that are going to be built throughout the Navajo Nation, and stick with that, not the whole gamut that we were trying to put in there on the 23rd Council, and it got very comprehensive, and it was a big binder, and we were trying to decide which code we should use, but if we just specifically stick with just homes in itself, residential. Yeah, residential is the word for that, Speaker. Thank you.
My first question to you, Vice Chair Smith, is have you referred this information over to Office Legislative Council? Or is this your first time notifying them?
Like I said, Speaker, it was brought forth.
Okay. Hold on. Go ahead, Vice Chair Smith.
I think I'll turn it over to Legislative Council. She's our attorney at the time at BNF, and I'll give her time to speak on that behalf. It was requested at the time. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay. Ms. Lowell?
Speaker, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Kristen Lowell, and Legislative Council is currently drafting a legislative concern as requested by Delegate Smith. Thank you. I don't know if Delegate Smith wanted to add anything else to be in the legislative concern, but it is in the process of being drafted right now by Ms. Mariana Khan. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Smith, when it's ready, I'll come back to you. At this time, it's not ready.
Thank you, Speaker. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, colleagues?
Speaker Kiawan.
Jay, Honorable Keon Begay, go ahead.
Quickly, regarding the proposed amendment by Che, let's add a legislative concern. Could it be other to the overall program of the Navajo Nation rather than just the veterans, the housing code? I don't want down the road where housing code no veterans so I think there got to be an overall blanket housing code that could be established rather than just the veterans. That's a recommendation, Speaker.
Honorable Keon Begay, I guess when we just start discussing that amendment, that's when you can ask those questions. If you have another amendment that you want to work with that can tie into Vice Chair Smith's amendment for an overall, then maybe you can contact Ms. Lowe or Ms. Khan, who's actually working on it right now.
Speaker, if I may, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith, because we don't have anything before us right now. Vice Chair Smith.
Speaker, this is Vice Chair Smith. Thank you, Speaker. In reference to what Mike Chase said, I was mainly speaking about the overall. The veterans is just a prime example. I would like to have CPMD do an overall residential building standard for the Navajo Nation. That was my intent on this, and veterans were just an example. So, Ms. Khan, if you can put that in there as Navajo Nation building code standard. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Keon Begay, good? Okay. Honorable Keon Begay. Okay, with that, let me move on down. Go back to the board. Madam Chair, Amber Crotty.
Thank you, Speaker, colleague. Appreciate the discussion on the main motion. Speaker, we just voted on an amendment regarding carryovers for the Eastern Land office or commission. I would need guidance from our legislative council in looking at the Budget and Finance Committee report on page 1. There is a directive on page 6, line 13, to insert section 5 as follows. The Office of the Controller is directed to provide a report of unexpended funds for the fiscal year 2020 by program and business unit by December 1st, 2020, period. This report shall be presented to the Navajo Nation Council for its consideration to make a supplemental appropriation to programs with unexpended fund amounts from fiscal year 2020, period. Any supplemental appropriation of unexpended fund amounts from fiscal year 2020 will be done as an alternative to approving program or division carryovers as part of fiscal year 2021 comprehensive budget. This was voted at Budget and Finance with a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Speaker, I just need to know, because of the amendment that was just passed by the committee, if there was language in that amendment that modifies this directive by Budget and Finance Committee, or where are we at? Because it appears to contradict. Thank you, Speaker.
With that, I turn this over to Office of Legislative Services. I know that Ms. Lowell, you might have, actually Legislative Council, Ms. Lowell, you might have helped develop that directive. Probably have further insight to Madam Chair Amber Crotty's question, or Ms. Barbara too as well.
Speaker, this is Kristen. Yes, so in answer to Ms. Crotty's question, if there's contradiction in the action to approve amendment to carryover for Eastern Navajo Land Commission, there is contradiction with the last sentence where it says a supplemental appropriation will be done as an alternative to carryovers. What we can do is strike the word alternative to and put in addition. Actually, alternative, strike that and put in addition, because this would clarify that there's also going to be carryovers, and then this directive in section 5 would still remain relevant for any carryovers that don't make it into the new Exhibit I, which this new Exhibit I is going to be a living document. So as carryovers get included into NABI and they get further amended at council, this Exhibit I, it's a new Exhibit I, so it's going to change, and it is not what's going to be labeled an Exhibit I on your resolution. And the reason for that is so that when we go back and read the legislation, the exhibits are in alphabetical order. So that is my intent and hope, but it will be, the title will be carryover from FY20 into FY 2021, and it'll be a running list of carryovers, Speaker.
Madam, or Ms. Lowell, is there any way you could put that together in an amendment? And then we could bring that up at the time when somebody raises it?
I can certainly put that. Sorry, Speaker.
Maybe you can put it at the bottom of your listing of amendments.
Yes, Speaker.
But that actually, but it would probably be needing to be done. I'm not going to recognize any further discussion of carryovers until that amendment is passed. So if there's any further amendments for carryover, we need to discuss that one first. Because as indicated,
Speaker, can I clarify something? This is
because it's contradicting. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lowell.
Speaker, so you want me to work on the amendment to the section 5? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, section 5. That was the one that was clarified,
Okay.
or the new language that was developed at BNF, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, colleagues, is there any other comments, questions? There's no other comments, questions. I can go to second reading and send this on to council. Madam Chair, Amber Cardi.
Thank you, Speaker. I will need to ask Legislative Council if they received the proposed amendment language from OMB. It's just that was sent to the Budget and Finance Committee. It's not clear. I don't see exact language that they need for the amendment, but there are a series of about 6 items that possibly need to be addressed. If OMB is on the line, I need clarification in terms of if this is your amendment and what action do you need from the committee? Thank you.
Hello?
What was that? Office Legislative Council?
I'm not, if we could, Chairman Damon, if we could ask OMB regarding their amendment. I'm looking for the amendment language. I do not see it on my email. I see a summary. So then the second question would be if Legislative Council received an amendment language from OMB. I just need clarification. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, great. With that, OMB. Was there any additional language that you're suggesting that needs to be in the budget? Comprehensive budget legislation? Anybody from OMB? Mr. Bial, Ms. Jim? Can you hear me?
Good morning, this is OMB. One moment, we're getting the documents together.
Okay, so there is additional documents that you're needing for to be
Mr. Speaker.
Amended into the legislation?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. This is Ms. Sam. One moment, please.
Good morning, Ms. Sam.
They're working, they're getting the documents together.
Okay, so
Okay,
there is.
hold on. Ms. Lisa is coming. Yes, there is.
Mr. Speaker, this is Otto So.
Yes, Honorable Otto So.
You know, we know that we are pressing against time, but to have all these proposed to really hear this resolution that's brought forth by Budget and Finance Committee on the legislation 0224, what we're discussing is something that we need more hours related to this meeting, addressing this matter this morning to now. That's really not a you know, we're just pushing this thing through. But I would request is that maybe we go ahead and table this resolution and conduct another NABI hearing tomorrow, starting at 7 in the morning to try to finish this up, since we're having a special session at right after this session again. And that's going to be my motion, Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Otto, so before I recognize your motion, let me explain the timeline that we have here before us that we're currently in right now. Today is we would get out of NABI, we would prove it out of NABI, and we would have all day for the rest of the day from here until all day, continuing even if it's into the night, all day tomorrow, and all day Wednesday until midnight. That's the current timeline of when we have to discuss this budget. But this budget, according to the budget, or to the budget session that was posted, that has to be 24 hours in advance, or is it 48 hours? 24 hours in advance for a special, or for the special budget session. We have until midnight of Wednesday to get this done so that OMB can complete their documents and complete everything that they possibly can. And it's going to take them about 3 days. So they'll have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And they're trying to, and we need to make sure that the budget is certified. So we're going to have to certify that budget and send that over. And then from the time that it's certified, it's probably going to take maybe until Sunday to send the certification over to the president. The president then will have 4 days, or is it 3 days? 3 days at the earliest, if we can get this done. If Honorable Otto, so if we table the legislation and we go into another Naabik'íyáti committee tomorrow, and I wouldn't be able to have a NABI until after 11:40, because we need to post it, the NABI agenda 24 hours in advance. So let's say if we have a NABI at noon tomorrow, we would only have NABI for all day tomorrow, and then what we would do is probably just have 1 day of a Navajo Nation Council session on Wednesday till midnight. So there is another Navajo Nation Council session that's happening on Thursday too as well, but that's different. That's its own special session that's in reference to a veterans plan that needs to be passed by the end of this fiscal year, and also some CARES legislations that are going to be on that special session, Honorable Otto. So from 1 o'clock today till midnight on Wednesday is a Navajo Nation Council special budget session. So we're actually going to be in council session for the next 64 hours. Honorable Otto, so you still want a motion?
Yeah.
So we would, so that you would table this to the next NABI meeting, and the next NABI meeting is if Honorable Otto, so if we table this legislation, there's two things that can happen. One of them is that if you're requesting, and I'll honor your request, but I cannot have a special NABI session tomorrow if Chairman Hino and Madam Chair Amber Crotty continue to move this legislation forward and add this on to today's session at 1 o'clock. Because it's tabled, there's Naabik'íyáti committee took an action on it so that they can take this legislation to council at 1 o'clock today, because it's not final authority. So it continues to move on. If they don't do that, I can have a special Naabik'íyáti committee meeting at noon tomorrow. But that's only if we don't have a special session today and moving into tomorrow's session, which we already have posted an agenda, because I cannot have a Nabi session while there's a Navajo Nation Council session in place.
Sure, question and privilege. This is Daniel.
Honorable Daniel, so, all right,
Yes, yeah.
Honorable Herman Daniel, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I read the question of privilege, Cordona Reda. I had two questions that I want to ask Cordona Reda pertaining to this legislation that's moving forward, Cordona Reda. If this legislation, if it tables, does it still move forward to Navajo Nation Council special session? That's my first question. Adonan, my second question is when we go with CR, without continuing resolution, I know we gave dollars to chapters. What happens to those dollars that's given to the chapters? I just get those two questions. Sure. Thank you.
Honorable Daniels, just to answer your first question, I think I guess I didn't explain. If the sponsors want to take this to Navajo Nation Council session, the budget session at 1 o'clock today, and let's say this Honorable Otto So moves forth with his recommendation to table this legislation. If the tabling motion passes, and Honorable Hino, Chairman Hino, moves forward with the legislation to add it on at the Navajo Nation Council session at 1 o'clock, he has that authority to do that, because Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti committee is not final authority, and they did act on it. So to answer your question, yes, they have the option to do that. To answer your second question, regarding the Office of regarding a CR, we did have a meeting on that, and that was done due to Vice Chair Walker's request last week on Friday in the morning. And I will turn that over to Office of Legislative Counsel, Ms. Dana Barbara, for that response.
Speaker, this is Ms. Bobroff. Before I respond to that, could I get Delegate Daniels to restate his question, please? Not the question about it moving on to council. You handled that. No, his second question about the carryovers. I'm sorry, not the carryovers, the continuing resolution.
Chair, this is Daniel again. In relation to my second question, what I pose is, I know we gave out dollars has been given to the chapters, the 110 chapters. If this CR kicks in, what will happen to those dollars? Are those dollars going to be taken back to, given back to the Navajo Nation, or do those dollars stay at the chapters? I know that dollars, they stay in the winter roll, but that's my question.
The budget manual where it says chapters always carry over. Thank you, Delegate Daniels. So I'm looking up the provision right at the moment, but dollars to chapters carryover under it's in the Appropriations Act. I just have to find the exact provision. It's in H20N, and it states that, so 12 NNC 820N, appropriations approved by the Navajo Nation Council will lapse at the end of the fiscal year unless otherwise designated by the Navajo Nation Council. Appropriations to the chapters of the Navajo Nation will not lapse at the end of the fiscal year, provided that the chapters shall budget those funds in the subsequent fiscal year in accordance with the purposes and conditions originally set forth by the Navajo Nation Council in its appropriations. So, excuse me, the short answer is that the chapter amounts will carry over automatically. They don't lapse. So I think that the continuing resolution won't affect the unspent funds from last year. And if I may, we're going to have a further discussion at council about some continuing resolution options. I didn't get as far writing it up over the weekend as I had hoped, in that the Hess work session went on for
Hey, with that, Honorable Daniels, does that answer your question?
I don't have Chair Kodona, for 2021 budget, chapters, what will happen to those dollars? I know right now, a lot of the chapters, they're accepting those dollars that get allocated to them by the nation for 2021 budget. AD get accepted by resolution. They're going to be budget sheet later. They're going to be allocating those funds at the chapter level. The resolution sheet and they're going to submit those. AD even those dollars right now. They're accepting those dollars. What will happen to those funds? AD if we go with CR. Continuing resolution. Even I just kid Chair, I don't know the Budget and Finance Committee Chair. Thank you.
Honorable Daniels, just as add on to the clarity, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Barbara or Ms. Lowell, what would happen is we would create a new Navajo Nation expenditure or CR resolution. And in that CR resolution at this time, at this point, if it was going down to a CR resolution, we would have to, they would draft that legislation, and it would probably go into an emergency legislation, pass that and move it forward. And in that, and that at that time, making sure that clarity is driven in the legislation to state that the chapters would be receiving the same funds as they did in the previous year, because it is a continued resolution from FY 2020. Ms. Barbara? Ms. Lowell?
Speaker, this is Kristen.
Yes.
If I think there was a technical difficulty. Ms. Bobroff is having a technical difficulty. It sounds like she is back on the line, so I will let her answer that question, Speaker.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my phone dropped and I had a challenge getting back on. So I don't know what the last question is. When my phone dropped, I was responding to Delegate Daniels.
Ms. Barbara, what Honorable Daniels is worried about when the Navajo Nation chapters get their budgets on an annual basis, they usually have to pass a resolution, and when they pass that resolution, then they take it back to the local administrative service center, and then the ASCs compile their report, then they send it over to the controllers, then the controller will release their funds. So he's worried that because there's no budget in place, there'll be no budget dollars for the chapters. But what I'm saying to Honorable Daniels is that when we do pass, if there is a point that we get to that we have to pass a CR, well, and we're going to pass a CR and the council is going down that path, once the CR is passed, in there, well, it'll probably be emergency legislation. And in the CR, there will be specific language in there to identify not only for the regular Navajo Nation government, but also for chapters that they would be receiving the same amount of funds because it's a continuing resolution from FY 2020 that they'd be given the same amount of funds, probably like was indicated on Friday's meeting of 50% of the funded amount for the first half of the year until the Navajo Nation Council approves an appropriation. So it would specifically possibly at that point give the chapters a 50% check in order for them to operate for 50% of the year until the council and the office of the president finalizes an FY 2021 budget.
That is correct, Speaker. Perhaps maybe the controller or OMB can add something to that. But what you said is correct. A continuing resolution would provide funding for the chapters as well as the central government.
Honorable Daniels, is want more information from the controller or OMB?
Sure, Abika. Thank you.
Okay, OMB controller, want to chime in on this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Speaker Damon, council members, people listening. This is Lisa Jim with OMB, Principal Budget Analyst. When we did the previous, many years ago, when we did the, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, when we did the CR in previous years, we did carry over everyone at, I believe at the time it was 45%. And that was just using the previous year budget. So in this case, we would just use the 2020 budget and just carry that over at whatever percentage is determined. And so I believe, I guess OOC could answer the question, that would affect the carryovers in a sense. Because if we're carrying over 50% of the 2020 budget, you really wouldn't have carryovers to carry over at that time. Mr. Speaker?
Thank you. Anybody from Office of the Controller?
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. This is Robert Willie. What Lisa did indicate is true. We only allocated out a portion to the chapters based upon that resolution at that time. So they were funded And the process is that they get their budget amounts. They work with DCD and forward those budgets onto Office of Management and Budget. They're subsequently set up, and then the chapter works with the community and then DCD, and then they send the payment documents through DCD to Controller's Office for payment. So hopefully that's clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is Bennett. Clear as mud now.
Okay. That, Honorable Otto So, back to you. We're back to the tabling motion?
Yes, I would like to go back to the table in motion.
Okay.
The fact that, we are in a short time crunch at Nabi, and I'm looking at this now as the legislation that's just being ramrodded through the system with little time for leadership to really address a lot of the issues that need to be inserted or put into this comprehensive budget. And to the terms of having the earliest special Nabi as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. That, colleagues, if you look on, before I accept the motion, I just want to let everybody know that according to Title 2, 164, A, under 11, it says a legislation that was tabled, this is code, legislation that was tabled by the committee with final approval authority over the matter shall remain with the committee until removed from the table status. Next, it says a legislation that was tabled by a committee without final approval authority over the matter shall move forward to subsequent assignment committee or the Navajo Nation. According to that, this legislation, if tabled, this legislation shall move forward no matter what. That, colleagues, Honorable Otto So's motion to table. Is there a second? One once. One
Second by
twice.
Charles Newton.
Table by Honorable Otto So. Second one, Madam Chair, Charles Newton. There's a question of privilege by Madam Chair, Amber Crotty. The question of privilege was the Legislative Council. Do you have that OMB language? And OMB, did they reach out to you to get that amendment? That's a question of privilege. Legislative Council?
I'm sorry, Speaker, can you repeat the question?
The question is that, did OMB forward you over their documents for the amendment that they're requesting that's going to be added, that they want added into the FY 2021 comprehensive budget?
I'm going to defer to Kristen on that. I'm not sure.
Speaker, this is Kristen. We do have that document, Speaker.
Is it ready?
I need to just review the numbers. I have not had the opportunity to review just to make sure that the lines referenced in OMB's document are in the correct place in the legislation, Speaker.
Okay. All right. So it's probably going to take about another 30 minutes.
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newton.
Speaker.
Okay, thank you. That, we're on the tabling motion. Madam Chair, Charles Newton. What?
Thank you. Speaker,
discussion on the tabling motion.
Yes. I'm sorry, would you say no discussion on the tabling motion?
Yeah, there's no discussion on the tabling motion or debate.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine, thank you.
Okay, with that, we got a motion, second. Go to board. Tabling Naabik'íyáti or tabling legislation 0224-20 until the next Nabi meeting.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes red.
Honorable Paul Begay votes red. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canis-Valcarty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canasba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels.
Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green chili.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
He votes red.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes red. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Rick
Delegate James
Nez.
votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, red.
Honorable Carl Slater votes red. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Red.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes red. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So.
I vote green.
Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika. Honorable Edmund Yazi.
Red.
Honorable Edmund Yazi votes red. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes red.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes red. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Edison Wanika. Speaker with a vote of 12 yeas and
Speaker,
6
this is
nays.
Delegate Brown. I voted red. Sorry, I tried to unmute myself.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes red. Speaker with a vote of 12 yeas and 7 nays.
Talking to myself that whole time. With that, colleagues, with a vote of 12 in favor, 7 opposed, Chair not voting, motion carries to table legislation 0224-20. That, colleagues, we're on to the next item. Close the meeting and announcements.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order, Speaker. Callan.
On Begay.
Point of order. If I'm in order, I voted red for the tabling motion. Thank you.
You voted red, Shay? On Begay.
Red for table.
No, I called you 5 times, Shay. Okay, again.
Okay, but I voted red though.
I know, I got you, Che. I got you. Okay, 12. That change of vote from 12 to 8 now. 12 in favor, 8 opposed. Chair not voting. That, colleagues, moving on down. Close the meeting. Announcements, adjournment.
Henyo, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Chairman Henyo. Second.
Eugene, so.
Eugene, so. Adjourning at 12:05 p.m. That, any discussion item are on adjourning? Went once, went twice, went 3 times. Go to board.
Speaker, point of privilege. Question privilege.
Question privilege, Chairman Henyo.
So that means I can go opinion picking now? We don't have a special session this afternoon?
According to the code, a legislation that was tabled at a committee without final approval authority over the matter shall move forward to the subsequent assigned committee or the Navajo Nation Council. Because Navajo Nation Council's in 40 or 53 minutes, this legislation is going to be on the council session, according to the code.
No opinion for you.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Henyo, go ahead and go pick opinions.
Yeah, go to board then.
Permits.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable K. Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Callan votes green.
Honorable K. Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canaspa Crotty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
I vote green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Blue votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henyo votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Look through it. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
For Jamie Handy to pick opinions, green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green. Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Daniel So.
Daniel So votes green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
I reckon green. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika. Honorable Edmund
Green.
Yazzie. Honorable Edison Wanika.
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Sorry about that. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. was talking to me, but I do vote green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Otto So. Speaker with a vote of 20 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, with that, 20 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries to adjourn. That, talk to everybody in 50 minutes. Be back on the line. Have a good lunch break.